Welcome, everybody. Thank you all so much for joining us. And here at Boulevard, thank you guys for hosting us. This is Brew Talks. We travel the country hosting these talks, industry meetups. And this is the latest installment with we're Brewbound. I forgot to actually introduce us. We're a craft beer industry trade publication. And this is, what is it, the sixth or seventh talk we've hosted this year, something like that. But yeah, so I'm just gonna get underway instead of continuing to ramble. To my left, we have Jon Poteet, the Vice President of Marketing with Central States Beverage Co. And we're gonna kind of discuss his business. They move through a lot of Boulevard beer, as well as some other brands. So I guess just to start here, I'll shift over to you, Jon. Just to start, what's sort of your role with the company, and just tell us a little bit about the business, the brands you guys sell, and your role with Central States.
Sure. Well, welcome to Boulevard, you guys. My job is to be the liaison for marketing for the breweries that we represent in Kansas City. I've been in my job for 7 years and been with our company for 15 years this Wednesday. So I've seen a lot of different things in the beer industry in terms of where we've been, where we're going, what we deal with on a day in, day out basis. Our company is a family-owned business. We've been in business since 1932 in Kansas City. We've been owned by the same family since 1932. The Moss family is the family who started our company here in Kansas City, and we've been around a very, very long time. We manage and have the privilege of selling a variety of different brands. We are everything from our beloved friends at Boulevard Brewing Company to Founders, to Martin City Brewing Company, soon to be Crane Brewing Company, Lagunitas Brewing Company, Founders, Miller Lite, Coors Light. So we have a vast portfolio that we have the privilege of selling and representing here in the Kansas City market area, and been doing it for a while.
So I guess let's just start quick with Boulevard. You guys sell a lot of Boulevard. Last year you guys sold a million cases, which if I'm not mistaken was the most ever in a single year by one of their singular distributor partners. And that's through 7 years selling the brand. So when you guys acquired that brand, what sort of potential did you see for it in the marketplace, considering it was already a well-established kind of iconic local name already? So what kind of potential did you see there to be able to grow it to where you did?
Well, it was great because back in 2007, we bought the Coors distributor, which had the privilege of selling the Boulevard brands. And the first thought that came to mind was, thank God I don't have to compete against them anymore. Boulevard is an incredibly strong brewery in the Kansas City market. And when we had the privilege of acquiring those brands in-house, we were selling approximately 477,000 cases of Boulevard back in 2007. And it was the apple of our eye. You know, our company, we had Sam Adams, we had Guinness, we had a lot of imports. You know, in 2007, we weren't as diverse in craft as we are now. So we had Anchor Steam. To have the privilege of representing Boulevard in terms of selling, that was huge for us. So the passion and tenacity that everybody had bundled up against having to sell against them for all these years, because they're a fierce, fierce competitor in this market. They love Kansas City, and they're loved back by Kansas City. So to be a part of that and have the opportunity to sell the brand was amazing. I mean, and still is to this day.
So how have you guys sort of driven behind it, since it is sort of, you know, well established here? How do you I guess bring a new fresh take on this product that's already, you know, well known? How do you then grow it to the extent that you did?
A lot of work, a lot of good partners at Boulevard Brewing Company as well. When you look to go from 477,000 cases to 1 million last year, it takes a commitment, dedication, and investment behind the brand. The ability to work together with your brewery partner and establish monthly goals, hitting your monthly goals, looking for outside opportunities to align the brand with where they might not have existed before. You know, one of the most unique things that we've been able to do with Boulevard is truly align the brand around some bigger venues in the Kansas City market. they make great liquid. Okay, so that part is a must for any brewer. But once you're making great liquid, and once you have the love of a community like this brewery has, to be able to strategically align that brand, whether it's at Kauffman Stadium, Sporting Kansas City, the music venues in Kansas City, and you can put that brand in front of that consumer who is a true craft beer fan and make sure that it is a go-to, available, always, everywhere choice. You know, you can't go to any music venue in the city and not be able to get a Boulevard beer. So strategically, I think we doubled up on our alliances. I think we doubled up on our focus. Clearly, we doubled our sales staff with the acquisition of Big Sky. So having 90 people focused against a brand versus 45, I think that goes a long way for both the brewery and the distributor.
So you mentioned earlier when we were kind of speaking, catching up before this talk started, that Boulevard accounts for, I think it was roughly a fifth of your overall sales. So how do you, I guess, continue to I guess, preach the gospel of the rest of your portfolio while still growing this this well-established local brand, but continuing to flesh out the rest of your offerings?
Sure. Anybody that knows our company, I think, you know, you will know, number one, we're really passionate about craft beer. So absolutely, without a doubt, many brewers who we talk to at Central States say, oh my gosh, you have Boulevard. How can we possibly get the time of day in your portfolio? I think it all comes down to managing the expectation of the brewer and setting realistic goals, because the reality is that we invest in small brands, both from monetary and manpower and support, whether it be a small brewery like River North Brewing Company out of Colorado. If you go around Kansas City, you see a lot of branding and marketing and support for those brands. Whether it's Santa Fe Brewing Company, we come up with programs and branding, and we put incredible focus against all of those brands. And I think because we've been able to prove to a few different breweries that you can have a large brewer in a local town like Boulevard and be in the same house and still be successful with their brands because of the focus and energy and effort you put towards them, I think after that, the initial shell shock has gone away of, wow, look how big they are. But when you give attention, you know, that's what distributors' jobs are. You have to give attention to the brews and the beers and the breweries you represent. If you don't, you probably shouldn't have them.
So I guess strategically speaking, what are some of the differences in pushing behind, we were talking about River North earlier and Santa Fe Brewing. What are the differences in pushing behind a smaller brand that's maybe not local to the market as opposed to, you know, moving Boulevard in the metropolitan area here?
Some of the differences are that, number one, Boulevard's here, and they've got an incredible support team in Kansas City to work with. They do a great job at a lot of those items. So what that allows us to do is the time that we don't have to spend marketing a brand or coming up with graphics or creatives or programs to go to retail with, it allows us to create programs for beers like Santa Fe. Whereas Boulevard will have their programs created and bring them to us, we will oftentimes, for a smaller brewery, create the programs, create the graphic identity, create the social media buzz, create the events that go on in town. When you have a brewery that's not local and they're out of Colorado, those small guys, they're not going to have a rep here. You have to be the face and voice of that brewery in your market. And if you have to go out and fight for it every day, you know, to make it work for them. And I think we're pretty good fighters.
And so how do you, I guess, then relay to a market or to the market when you take on a brewery like River North or Santa Fe that maybe the consumer doesn't know about? How do you, I guess, what's your role as a distributor in relaying their story and their identity to people and sort of introducing them?
Sure. Our role as a distributor is to create awareness of the brand being in the market first and foremost. We do that in a variety of different ways, whether it's a brewery event that we host at our facility, and the only way you can win your way in is on Twitter, or a meet and greet with the brewery. We utilize social media to create a lot of awareness for these breweries. I think our social media following as a beer distributor is larger than River North, and we utilize that tool to our advantage to invite consumers in to meet Matt and Jessica, who are the owners, to have an experience with a local chef. And we really try to put a local feel on a non-local brewery by being the face and the voice of that brewery. You know, we go out of our way to provide consumers with a great experience behind the beers and the breweries that we have the privilege of representing. So it could be anything from a contest to win a prize, to go to River North and have a VIP tour, or it could be a brew a beer with Santa Fe Brewing Company, or it could be win your way into a private catered dinner at Central States Beverage Company. But not only is it the launch, it's maintaining the consistency after the launch. The launches are easy. You know, the launches are the brand came in, everybody wants it, it's the hottest new thing. Staying consistent with supporting the brand after the fact is the real key.
And how do you keep that consumer acuity up? How do you keep them aware, or continue to introduce more people and you know, continue to push behind Santa Fe? Like we were talking earlier, you guys sent out a home brewer and they brewed a beer with Santa Fe. So it was kind of creating locality for a non-local brand. So once you say the launch is sort of easy, so how do you then keep up that momentum going forward?
Keeping up the momentum really comes with creative ideas. Define conventional wisdom, I guess. You know, what would somebody say, boy, I'd love to do, but they'd never have the chops to do it? Those are the things that we try to go do. The distributor-brewer collaboration, you know, Central States was the first distributor to ever do a beer collaboration with another brewery. And we took the local chef out. We took some of our cicerones out. We took a home brewer out. And we brewed a beer, and then it was only distributed back in Kansas City. Or we will do a bus trip to a brewery where the only way you can get on is win through our Twitter account. And, you know, all of our actions in social media really encourage consumers to go out and purchase and try the beer. You know, there's that natural built-in curiosity of, I want to know what that is. Oh, I heard there's this new brewery out there. Oh, I wonder what their IPA tastes like. We try to give them the reason to go ahead and convert that curiosity into the purchase. Once they have the purchase, then they get to enter the contest, or they can show their photo. And the biggest thing is engaging the consumer, answering the question that they ask you on Twitter, answering the question they ask you on Facebook. Some of the most basic things in the world, but also making it fun for the consumer at the same time, and giving them a sense of pride and ownership and connection to that brewery that isn't local.
So, and that's something, you know, craft beer bottle shops and retailers, they're really good, or most of them are really good about cultivating that image on social media and interacting with their consumers. Brewers obviously do a tremendous job of that as well. Distributors, though, sort of that middle tier is sort of the invisible hand at play. A lot of wholesalers kind of aren't visible to the consumer. Why is that something that you guys have decided to sort of go the opposite direction, and what has it allowed for you to do for your business in this marketplace?
Why did we go the opposite direction? Well, we needed a vehicle that we could speak to a lot of people at one time. We went that way, and I remember when we had 20 followers on Twitter, I wanted to just, why am I doing this? You know, and the reason we have to do it is because the brewer's not here to have a voice for themselves. When they tweet from a brewery account, they are tweeting to the masses of people, not geographically. You know, so for a Colorado brewery to come out and start tweeting about Kansas City all the time probably isn't going to go over really well on their platform. But distributors have a unique ability to talk about the brewery, to talk about the beers, to talk about what's going on with Founders or Lagunitas, whereas the overarching picture from a brewery Twitter account isn't going to be able to do that. It was really hard to build, but it's been well worth it. I think today, between all of our social mediums, we're talking to about 18,000 people between Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Hell, we're even on Google+. If there's a spot we can talk about it, we probably are going to. And what it's done for those brands is it's giving them a voice in Kansas City. It's giving them a voice with beer fans that they might not ever have, because they can't do what we can do locally for their brand through that medium.
And sort of when we were speaking earlier, you mentioned if you were to maybe walk into a bar around here, there'd be a good handful of people who actually know who Central States is. That's not really something that's common, I think, to the average consumer. They don't really know who's distributing the beer. They know who makes it, they know where they can go get it, but they don't really know who's trucking it around. What does that do for you guys, I guess, to have that awareness that people are actually aware of who the distributor is, and they know what you guys sell, they know what's in your book?
We develop friends, not followers. My boss was in a bar one day, and he was sitting next to a young lady who was wearing a Mother's Brewing Company shirt. And he said to her, where did you get that shirt? And she goes, I won it from Central States Beverage. They're really awesome. They're a beer distributor in Kansas City, and they hook up consumers all the time with some of the best swag that you could ever imagine. So yeah, we will give a lot of stuff away on our Twitter feed or our Facebook feed to connect the breweries with the consumers. And, a lot of people do know us. I'm sure there's a few people in here that might even follow us on Twitter or Facebook, but it's been well worth it. And I'm sorry to digress, but it's cool.
Yeah. So I guess kind of just to shift focus a little bit and to talk about the broader market in general. I guess, what are you seeing out there? What channels are working really well right now, and what kind of brands are performing well in the marketplace?
Craft beer is on fire. Clearly, you've got several bars that open today that don't take in a Miller Lite, Coors Light, Bud Light. I think bars are still challenged with things that are going on right now. There's a lot of bars that are into the new flavor of the day, what's new, and it's hard to gain any real estate and stay on tap in a bar. Tap handles are the toughest thing to come by in general. C-Store is doing well and starting to get into more of a great craft selection. But what you'll see going on in C-Stores is a lot of it's still hot shelf. They haven't cut cooler space in yet for a lot of the crafts. For some of them, maybe the top 2 in the market, top 3, depending on where you're at. If it's a CVS or Walgreens, they're cutting it in. Independent liquor is doing well. But I think right now, bars have the biggest challenge. What do I put on tap? Once that bar owner puts a $250 to $500 keg on tap, if they don't have the velocity to empty it, that hurts for the retailer. So you have a lot of people making quick decisions based on what's the new flavor of the day. And that part, I think, is going to be the most interesting part, not only now, but for the next few years. So
with, you say, tap handles are hard to come by right now, highly coveted. As a distributor, when it's such a limited resource, a tap handle, and you do land one, how do you determine what brand in your portfolio will work? How do you pinpoint these accounts where a brand will fit or a brand won't fit?
Well, a lot of that comes from our tap handle surveys that we do. If they've got 4 wheat beers on tap, clearly it might not be the best spot for me to put River North White, and I may be better suited putting a porter on from Santa Fe Brewing Company. If they've got 5 IPAs, I might want to look at the other beers available from the breweries that we represent. So I think you have to be very, very strategic about how you go about it. You have to pay attention to the data that you gather in the market. You have to look at your tap handle surveys. You have to identify the beers that are on tap and find where your niche is. Because at the end of the day, what you want is that beer on tap to be sold through. You don't want to put it there just to say, hey, look, I got a tap handle for you, Dave. You want to put a tap handle on, you want to create movement, and you want to empty kegs, and you want to help the brewery that you put on tap. If you put one on tap for the sake of putting it on tap, it's probably not in your best interest, the retailer's best interest, or the brewery's best interest. So I would say know your surroundings, know what's there, and know where an opportunity is in the selection for the bar owner.
And so I guess then conversely, if that's sort of a limited part of the industry right now in this area, where are you seeing more run room? Where are you seeing the opportunity for brands to take off?
I think brands taking off right now. Kauffman Stadium's a great place where brands are taking off in Kansas City. Independent liquor stores and grocery stores are great places where brands are taking off. Chain retail is a great place for a brand to take off, provided there's vertical call coverage both from the distributor and the brewer. Some of the breweries don't have chain folks calling. So I think every outlet is a good place for a brand to take off, but it really depends on the structure of the call points from the distributor and the brewer to make that happen.
So I guess looking forward a little bit, if you could look into the crystal ball, where do you see things going in the future here in Kansas City? Is there more room for more brands, or are things starting to sort of tighten up and get a little competitive, or where do you see it all trending?
Things are always competitive in Kansas City. There's definitely more room. Kansas City, we don't have 100 breweries like Portland or 500 breweries like Portland. So there's a lot of room, and there's a lot of room for more brewers in this market. There's more people moving into Kansas City. The downtown is coming alive with more residents and more buildings being built. I think in Kansas City we've got more upside than anything.
So is it, I believe last time we spoke you said it was around a 10 million case per year market?
Yes.
Okay, so do you see more room there, or is that sort of where it's at, or do you see that number sort of growing as well?
I see that number growing, absolutely.
To where, if you had to guess?
If I had a crystal ball, I would think we could easily add another 5 million cases in this market in the next 15 years.
So I guess then, how do you get there then? Once, if we're here now, what's, I guess, the next step to get to 15 million?
Well, I need to get to 2 million cases of Boulevard. Okay, first, that'll be a big help in getting us there. But I think as a community, we have to support the breweries that are here. Take care of the breweries that are here, whether they're local or not. If you've got a non-Missouri beer that's selling in your market, or a brewery expands to your market, buy those beers at retail. Don't try them once and forget them. I think distributors and breweries have to work closely together to promote the beers that they have in the market. And I think the community has to grow. I don't see the consumer's palate changing in the next 10 years. And because of that, I think the upside is tremendous.
So since you mentioned getting to 2 million cases for Boulevard, what's the next step there? And I guess, it took 7 years to go from around 500,000 to 1 million. In 7 more years, can you add another 500,000, or will that take longer, less time? Or I guess, how do you now get to 2 million?
Hopefully it'll take less time. I think in 7 years we can get to 1.5 million cases. Absolutely. The beers that Boulevard is brewing today have so many upsides for them, and together our partnership and investing back in the Kansas City community is stronger than it's ever been. I don't see that wavering. If I had a crystal ball, could I get there? My answer is absolutely. I think we can.
Awesome. I guess just before wrapping up here then, I'll ask if you have anything else you want to add, any parting words?
Appreciate your being here at Boulevard Brewing Company today, and thanks for giving us the opportunity.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us. Jon Poteet, Central States. Breaking, or we're just going? Does anyone have any questions for Jon that you'd like to ask while we got him here? I can pass around the mic.
I'd like to know what kind of beer you like to drink.
The tougher question is, what type of beer do I not like to drink? I like it all. I'm a huge Saison fan, and I'm a big Pale Ale fan. And Saisons, I'll take it from one end of the gamut to the other. I'm not as big of an IPA fan, but I really have a Saison problem.
Talk about some of the new and upcoming breweries to Kansas City.
From the Crane Brewing Company guy. So I actually met Michael Crane at one of our private When Your Way In dinners, at Central States, and I think you guys will meet him in a little bit. He's going to be opening up a brewery in Raytown here later this year, so we're excited to have those guys involved in the Kansas City beer scene as well.
Any other questions? All right, John, thanks so much.